Oh, I think we're recording. Hello, this is Lisa,
I'm Chris.
and we're in a cheap studio podcast. How are you doing today?
Meh.
Well, you know what? I looked outside just now when I was grabbing some mail, and we are completely fogged in.
I wasn't going anywhere anyway.
It's amazing. It actually looks like a horror movie when that thick
It's not
fog
that
rolls
bad.
in.
The fog here, when we moved from New York, I was like, why is there so much fog in this place?
Yeah,
This is not the worst it's been.
it's
Like
not.
one night I was driving with my cousin and she took me a route that I wasn't familiar with. And it's just fog. It's just all the fog ever. And next thing I know, I see like these two red glowing things that look like eyes, and I'm like, oh! And then as we approach, it turned out to just be the traffic light.
Oh God! Okay.
But it was so much fog, and because I do watch a lot of horror movies, all I could think is like, oh, it's coming to eat me.
Oh no! The first time we encountered fog like that here, we couldn't see the street from the door of the house.
So
It was insane, but we have fog.
if you read that Stephen King story,
The fog. It was the mist. Yes, it was just like the mist.
You're ruined for fog. Like, oh, child, we don't do fog.
Yeah.
Stephen King has planted some things in my head, and I feel like I'm like living with him.
We might have to I might have to write him a letter.
Right? I need like some sort of disability payment.
Like, sir, you have ruined several things for me.
We're not gonna talk about the closet.
No.
But yeah, that's why are we talking about fog?
It was on my mind because I just looked out and I was like, ah.
I feel like we don't have to start off weird. I realize we get like the podcast gets a little stranger as we get further into the hour, but I feel like we don't have to start with with what may be in the mist.
Okay.
What are you doing right now?
Go that route.
Have a thing in your hand.
Yeah, I am working on my Alvar Socks. I am doing them concurrently. So rather than stringing them both up on my double points, I have one on this 40-inch needle doing magic loop, and I have the other on two 16-inch needles doing two circular needles.
Why?
Because I wanted to do them two at a time, but I didn't feel like having them strung up on the same thing. And also I'm going to be doing intarsia on these socks, and that means I'm going to have bobbins dangling. And I didn't want to have all the bobbins dangling from one thing.
Okay.
But so
I
far,
like my one little hook.
That's what she says every time she sees more than a needle or two.
That looks like a whole situation, and I'm just like, oh no.
No, it's just another way of working a small circumference circle. You can magic loop things. You can do DPNs. You can do this. Yes, the hook is more versatile in that way. It is.
And Hathaway is grabbing that yarn, man.
But you know what? You don't need a hook on the end to grab the yarn.
I do.
I grab yarn all the time without a hook on the end.
That's why I call it sorcery. I'm just like, what do you do? How? Because when I tried, I was like, how do you make this piece of string go anywhere?
You were the boss of that string, okay?
I was like, I need a hook. She's like, you don't need. I needed a hook.
You don't need a hook. But there is one little thing about these socks. It's written for two sizes.
Surprise me on camera again?
No. It's written for two sizes. A 74 stitch sock and I forget what the other one is.
Is the other one bigger or smaller?
I think it's bigger.
Okay.
But neither of those are the number of stitches I needed. Because I went and got my foot model, which I skipped one time because I didn't feel like getting up and going to look for it. And when I use my foot model, those of you who are familiar with the fish lips kiss heel method, know about the foot model. I only needed 60 stitches for my sock. So what I did this morning was I just recalculated the placement of the stripes. Let me see. I think I still have the picture in here. No, I didn't. Okay, moving on.
Just tell them what book it's in.
Anyway, it's in 52 weeks of socks, and it is a sock with vertical stripes running up. Yeah, I'll just hold up the picture. Really cute socks. Yeah, hold that up close to the camera. Aren't those super cute? So I just recalculated the placement of those stripes in my pattern. And what I did with that was I just wrote it out with my numbers for my sock on here. That way I don't have, because you know what? I don't know if this happens to you, but if I'm not paying the strictest attention to my pattern, I've been known to pick up the wrong number now and again. So I actually got this from my mom. She writes out her steps. Let's say there's a long, complicated row and you have to do like 11 things. She'll write it out in 11 steps. So what I did was once I figured out where to place my stripes, I just wrote it out for myself. I'm going to have to repeat things. So I made little boxes that I can check it off as I repeated. That way I know exactly which repeat I was in.
I never have to do that when I'm crocheting. Now I feel like I'm doing something wrong.
No, you know what? You've seen me knitting. Am I only knitting when I'm knitting? So I need to help myself keep track.
Yeah, she has a TV on and she's watching something with subtitles. And then she called herself knitting, but then she got a phone in her hand. And I'm just like, which activity are we doing right now?
You just gonna put me on blast like that?
Mm-hmm. So is that why you need that?
Well, you know what? I would normally I would write it right into the book. And I might later on, but my pen was like,
I'm getting old, and I'm tell you how I know I'm getting old. Because the first thing I thought was, "Ooh, that print's real small in this pattern book." So y'all should know if you have any kind of vision issues and you want to make the socks out this book, the print's real small. So get your little magnifier situation or your glasses and the good lighting and whatever it is you need, because the print in this book is small.
Yeah, they got 52 patterns in it.
Okay,
I mean, geez,
they needed like a loose leaf.
You know how big this book would be? But what I did was I just stuck the page right in the book, so it'll be there for me next time I do a 60-stitch sock, and if I want to make this sock again. So you can definitely do it. The method I used for jiggering my stitches was I just subtracted to see how many stitches was between each set. Mm-hmm. And I did the same subtraction. I'm doing one less set because my sock is just a smidge smaller. And there you go. It wasn't a big deal. Is
supposed to be like a man's sock? Why they so big?
I don't know why they're so big. Because I'm using the same size needle. I'm using a 2.25 millimeter needle. It could be that their yarn was much thinner than mine is. That will happen. And so they just had to do more stitches to get the width. And I'm using Angora lace. And it's not the biggest, burliest fingering I've ever met, but it's not a thin one either. But that's where I'm at. I'm at with my socks. So I'm doing them concurrently. So that means I finished the toe on sock A, and I'm going to finish the toe on sock B. And I will just work on them going back and forth like that.
That's another perfectly good reason I don't make socks. Finish one, and then guess what? Guess who has 2 feet?
But that's where I'm at, and I love little projects like this because they just kind of go quickly. I go around each round because, like I said, it's only a 60-stitch sock, so I just get around the circle pretty quickly. So what are you up to?
I haven't crocheted a stitch all week. That's not exactly true. I had to redo my vest. Okay, let's back up.
Okay.
Making a fuzzy sweater. And the fuzzy sweater is going well, but I ran out of mohair. I thought it was going to be like a yarn chicken situation where it's like, will I, won't I? No, there was no chicken. I just ran out of yarn, like 2/3 of my sleeve left to go. So I knew I was going to have to take a break from that, but I also had to order some more mohair. And here's the thing. I couldn't find the color that I needed anywhere. So I'm using Elevate Silky Kid. So I went to Knitting Fever. That color's on back order. I tried Universal. Their like off-white color is also out of stock. I went to Lovecrafts. They didn't have that color. Then I'm ordering Mohair from Hobie Yarns. It's my first time ordering from Hobie. And I knew that they were in Scandinavia, but I thought they had like a U.S. warehouse that they shipped from, and they do not.
Where are you getting this yarn from?
The yarn is making its way to me from Denmark,
Wow.
which explains the $10 shipping.
Mm.
I think, remember when we tried to order some yarn from the people in Philadelphia, the two women, I can never remember the name of this company. Kelborn. And Espace Tricot had just done a collection
of
patterns with the yarn we wanted to order.
The Chalet collection.
We couldn't get any of the colors that were in that pattern collection. They were just, none of those colors were to be had. It was just, no, you can't. You can't, because no. So I'm thinking maybe someone did a collection that had this off-white mohair in it. Maybe. Because I couldn't find it anywhere except Denmark. So I'm waiting for my yarn to get here. So I had to pick up something else while I'm waiting for my yarn to get here. So I had planned to do a vest. I want to do a vest because I wouldn't have to do sleeves, and so it would just go faster. And I wanted to do something textured, and textured is, a little more work. So not having to do sleeves is like a great idea.
Compromise.
Right. Yeah. But I had these swatches with different stitch patterns, and I might have thought to write down somewhere what hook size I used, but I didn't.
Oh.
So I had to do a whole new swatch.
Oh.
But now I know it was 3.5 millimeters. Yay. I'm going to go ahead and write that down. And just in case I don't, I said it here so I can just watch the video.
Yes. And somebody makes fun of me for my notebook.
So I did. Yeah, yours is still extra. But I should at least jot down my hook size. Yeah. So now I have a swatch that I can actually use because I know what hook size I was working with. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the measure. I'm going to do a really simple vest, no like shaping or anything.
Is it going to be a V-neck?
No. No, it is not, because it's just going to be that simple, and I don't want to have to do any increasing and decreasing. Although, because I'm using Dora Orenstein's Crochet Every Which Way Stitch Dictionary, she has told me how to increase and decrease in patterns, so that wouldn't be an issue if I wanted to do a V-neck. But no, I'm just going to do, like a higher kind of round with squared off corners kind of neck kind of thing. Yeah. And it's going to just have a little contrast stripe at the bottom edge and probably across the chest. But all I've done so far is the swatch. I still have to draw my schematic and figure out what all my measurements are going to be. And I just haven't felt like doing that. So
let me ask you, when you draw your schematic, what do you do? Or do you make it to scale, or are you just doing a drawing and putting in measurements?
I've done it both ways, because the notebook I'm using is a composition notebook, but it's a graph paper ruled composition notebook. So I can do them to scale if I like, but I honestly don't see any added benefit.
That's what
to doing them to scale. If something's 12 inches, it's 12 inches. As long as, all I try to do is make the thing that's more inches look bigger than the thing that's less inches in the picture. Right. So that it's not distorted. But yeah, I don't really bother with drawing them to scale.
Because I was having that conflict with myself about drawing things out, especially like a schematic. Because honestly, I find that a lot of schematics are too cluttered, because some designers are really, going all out and providing a lot of sizes. At the same time, sometimes it's hard to make out your size. So I like to, if there is a schematic, just copy it and just have my numbers on it, because it just makes it easier for me to work with. Yeah. And, I'm not always paying the strictest attention. So I try to eliminate as many places for error as I can.
Okay. But yeah, no, I don't really bother with. I did it and I didn't see the advantage, so now I don't bother with doing it to scale.
Cool.
And I'm very tentatively working on my sewing. So I cut out my pattern pieces. You know, I cut them out in the fabric.
You go, girl.
And right now they're in a box. It's just sitting, waiting for me to get back to them. Now I have to figure out stringing a sewing machine I've never touched before. So that will be the next thing that I do. I have to figure out how to string it. I have to, wind the bobbin.
Yeah.
And I have to figure out which pressure foot I'm supposed to use, and then try my different stitches out and figure out what my stitch width and length is supposed to be. And all that sounds very involved, and I'm very terrified as I say it.
No, it's gonna be fine.
I'm terrified as I say it. So we're gonna see how all of that goes. But yeah, I've been going I just used pattern weights for the first time, because usually I pin things.
Yeah.
A million years ago, the last time I sewed. But because I was working with the stretchy fabric, I was very worried about how I was going to manage to cut it out without stretching it out.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the videos I watched said use pattern weights instead of pinning it, and use a rotary cutter. And I did both of those things, and I think I did okay. So good. We'll see. Mommy at least to keep making fun of me because I bought a lot of fabric.
It's so much fabric. It's so much fabric. Honestly, I think she bought so much fabric that she could make this skirt for her and one for me.
The objective was to have enough fabric, because I'm making a matching top. And my objective was to have enough fabric to make the whole outfit twice, because I was anticipating a first pancake. So that was why I ended up with so much fabric. But now that I've cut out the skirt,
yeah,
I'm realizing, oh my, that is quite a lot of
fabric.
That's a
lot of fabric. It looks like she's making drapes.
So if you don't shut up. You see what they do? Her and our mom have been doing this. Okay.
Just saying.
But now that I'm realizing that I've done this, I'm thinking I might do a little suite of things out of the fabric. And because I'll definitely have enough fabric to do some shorts. It's a stretchy knit kind of thing. So I'm thinking to do, things that with maybe a little hoodie or something. I don't know. I don't have any other patterns yet, because I'm really trying to focus on making one thing at a time. I don't want my sewing to become like my crocheting, where I have all the yarn. I can't store all the yarn and all the fabric.
No.
Someone would have to move out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to just finish this thing first before I make anything else, before I buy any other patterns. But if I'm going to have some fabric left over, it might be nice to make some other things too, and just have, I don't know,
a mix and matchable situation. That would be kind of cool.
So we'll see, because I am not there yet. I still have to string the machine. So I'm talking all kinds of big, but pay me no mind. But that's been the weekend stitches. I'm waiting for my yarn to come from Denmark, and I now have a usable swatch where I know what hook size I used, and I have cut out my fabric pieces for my sewing project.
That's a lot. That
doesn't feel like a lot. I was really hoping to finish my fuzzy sweater by the end of January, so I feel like I'm behind, and I know that's just in my head, but I'm behind.
You gotta let that go.
Now I have to make 7 things in February.
Oh, okay. I have a project that is on sleeper mode. I was planning also to make a vest, and I was having so much drama with the swatch. I kind of fell out of love with it. But what I will be doing is working on that swatch again. And when I have a completed swatch, I'll be able to show you guys a swatch. But I'm ready to start the intarsia. I'm not going to start the intarsia now. That's a lot, but I might wind a bobbin. So if you see me moving around, that's probably me winding a bobbin. That way my bobbins will be wound.
They're multitasking.
When I get started.
I don't think these are actually center pull balls. I find that they're very... Oh, I would stop that.
No, I just pull out the lump. Oh. Just a look on your face was priceless.
Just
The look on your face was absolutely priceless. I am still working on my shawl. Let me see if I can pull this up without dropping a whole bunch of other stuff. And in the background, I'm working on my temperature blanket. So here is my painting honeycombs. I just finished another honeycomb this week. So I'm going to work more on it next week so that I can get a few more honeycombs done. But I still love it. The colors are going to work with all the things I wear. I mean, look at it with a sweater now. I'm feeling it. But you know what? I have this theory that our eyes are tuned to certain colors. And we don't know we're doing it, but we're buying the same colors all the time.
Purple yarn.
Okay.
I have so much purple yarn. And the funny thing is, like, purple's my favorite color. It's my favorite color since I was a kid. And I don't wear a lot of purple. I don't like buy purple clothes a lot for some reason. But since I've been crocheting my own clothes, I have a lot more purple things.
I know you do.
Last year I made like 3 purple things, and I'm just like, and I'm very happy about it. But yeah, I tend to buy a lot of purple yarn.
You'll see a lot in my wardrobe this shade of blue, pinks and reds. I do have some purple too, but I like all shades of red, from the palest pink to the deepest Bordeaux. And I like a lot of contrast. I was doing my laundry one time, and somebody was looking at my laundry pile, and she was like, "Don't you have anything in solid colors?" Because I like color and I like pattern. So
I tend to have a lot of solid colors.
What I tend to think of as this as a plain sweater, I would pop this on with this in a heartbeat just to give it some pizzazz. So I was talking to my other sister this morning, and she was like, "Do you ever tell people that if they like the yarn you're using, they can buy it at your website?" And I was like, "Oh, sometimes I forget to say that." So I have links in the description bar, and our website is knitsheep.com. If you click the shop link, or just click through the link in the description bar, if you're interested in any of these yarns, you can get them at our website. Okay, Jess? So that's pretty much what I'm working on. I am keeping it to 3 projects. That is it. 2 is too few, 4 is too many. So when I'm finished with my shawl, I will be casting on my vest because I will have worked out all the swatching issues by then. And I'll be showing you my swatches and talking about it. Because you know what? No matter what people tell you, you really do have to swatch.
But your vest has a little mission creep. It's blossomed into this whole like vest extravaganza.
Yes. Yes, it has. And that's okay.
But I feel like if you're going to be doing that, that might be a project you want to put like most of your attention on and not really work on other things at the same time, because you have, or not. You
know what it is though? I'm just going to do some surface decoration when it's done. So I'm just basically knitting a stockinette vest with one cable.
Doing color, because the horizontal you're going to be knitting in as you do.
Yeah,
and
but
then
that's
the vertical. Okay.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it that way, but maybe. That's why I'm going to wait till I finish the shawl altogether so that I only have that one thing on my mind. Because I'll still be working the blanket in the background. Mm-hmm. Just in the background.
Okay.
I'm ignoring you right now.
I said nothing.
Oh, you said something. And you're still thinking it, but it's okay. So I'm just going to unravel my yarn barf ball, and then I will start winding some bobbins. Now, they said that I was going to need like 47 inches. So I'll wind on at least 50 just to be sure.
See, that's nice if you have a pattern and someone just tells you how much you're going to put on the bobbin.
Yes, girl.
That's another perfectly good reason to do intarsia from a pattern.
Correct. Correct. You know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with designing your own stuff, but sometimes you just want to be able to do your swatch and then get going.
Who are you telling?
you know, and with all the stuff figured out.
I agree. But for some reason, like I just kind of hit a wall when it came to working patterns. I did make a couple of things in patterns last year, but it's I don't know. It's nice to just not be attached to that pattern and have to go especially like the way patterns are done in the US where it's line by line.
Mm-hmm.
And you really have to like keep going back. I feel like it interrupts the flow of my stitching as opposed to when I just know what I'm doing already and I can just take off and do my own thing. Except then I don't always know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. There are pros and cons.
But I think that it's harder if you're designing on the hook. If you're thinking it out ahead of time.
Don't mean to. So, like with Fuzzy Sweater, I swore I had everything all figured out. But then I did not figure out how much yarn I was going to need ahead of time. And so I ran on the Mohair. And then I didn't realize that I was going to have to decrease in pattern, that I didn't already know how to decrease in pattern for my V-neck. It's just things that if you're still new to designing, you don't think to account for.
Well, yeah. Well, experience will get you there eventually.
Because if I were just doing single crochet, decreasing in single crochet is nothing, and that wouldn't have been an issue. But this stitch pattern, it wasn't until I got to the V-neck that I was like, whoa. So
I'm glad it's not just me, because I've been there.
So actually right now, as I'm working on my vest, I'm trying to like figure out what my process is for designing something and actually write down steps for myself and have like just kind of a reference that I want to make for myself.
Right.
That I can, those things that I need to ask myself before I start. Well, exactly how much yarn does this take? Am I going to be increasing and decreasing anywhere in this? So, you know, I have to make note of shaping and maybe work on swatches, especially if I don't know how to do shaping in that stitch pattern.
Right.
I want to make those swatches ahead of time so I'm not doing them at 2 a.m.
What?
But yeah, I'm trying to like formalize my process now because when I started designing things for myself, it was just like a lark. It was just like, oh, let me try this. But now that it's become like a lifestyle, I feel like I need to like make sure that it works for me and not drive myself crazy.
Well, yes.
So that's something. And the vest pattern is going to be very simple. So I feel like this is a good project to try that with.
So even if you are working from patterns, like it was funny because I was sitting with this book, 52 Weeks of Socks, and I was going through the pattern.
Is that by the people who published me?
Yes. And it turns out it's Lina.
Oh. Someone tell the Americans. We don't know.
I've been saying my name for ages. It's Lina. Would never have known. But so Mom was looking at me and I was taking some notes and she was like, are you going to read the whole pattern? And I was like, well, I'm not reading the whole pattern line by line. And I think that is a issue in Stitch World because one of the things you'll always see as a tip is read the pattern. But it's some of the driest reading you will ever do. I mean, some of us will actually, speaking for myself, actually feel your eyes getting heavy.
And you start off with the best of intentions. Like, ooh, I'm going to read this whole pattern start to finish, all 12 pages.
But there's really a process for that. So what I was doing was I was writing a list of the work order. What I hate in a pattern is when I don't even know where I am in the garment. I feel very insecure with that. So this pattern happily is labeled by portions of the sock. And since I'm doing both socks and they have a left and right orientation, so it matters which sock I'm doing, I made a list so that I could check off each one. You know, did I work on the left sock? Did I work on the right sock? And I'm designating, and that's why I did 2 different needle configurations. This way I know this is my left sock, this is my right sock, and I'll know as soon as I pick it up and look at it.
Socks are not for me.
So what you want to do is go through the pattern. You don't have to literally read every line, but I would write down what the work order is. If in the case of a sock, am I starting at the cuff or am I starting at the toe? What order do they want me to do this in? Because sometimes the order doesn't really matter, but sometimes the order matters very, very much. So I would look and see what order I'm doing things in. Then I would look, if you don't look at anything else, look at the finishing, because there will be things that surprise you in the finishing. Like one of the elements of this pattern, let's see if I can get that picture up right quick. If you notice, the little stripes have little angles at the bottom. You see the little line, horizontal line at the bottom?
Serifs.
Yeah, like little serifs. That's not knitted. And I wouldn't have known if I didn't look at the finishing, because they tell you how to do that as a finishing step. So if you don't look at anything else, you want to look at the order of the work. You don't have to read every line. You want to kind of have it in your head. Okay, I got to do this, 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 and this. Look for any techniques you might not know. And read, if there's a note from the designer. Yes, by God, read that note. Because there's something you will need to know. Like, if they felt the need to add a paragraph somewhere, you need that information. Read that note.
Because the notes are not by the by, it's look at here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you really. Mm-hmm.
You need to know what's in that note. So if you don't read anything else, read the note, know the work order, read the finishing. Because there's often surprises waiting for you there too. Because you could think,
I would never have guessed looking at the sock that wasn't.
Yeah, that's not knitted. And that's a technique I'm going to need to learn.
Zoinks.
Zoinks indeed. So that's your basic read through the pattern. You don't have to read every single line, but girl. If you don't read nothing else, read that note, okay? Read the note, read the finishing. You got any tips for the patterns?
Yeah, no, read the note.
Read
the note. Oh, God, always read the notes. Sometimes I read them and I'm like, I'm going to what now?
Yep. Because they got some surprises for you. They're like, oh, girl, we know you know how to do circular knitting, but I did it in an oddball way.
Because it's such a highly idiosyncratic thing,
mm-hmm.
designing, and you just work the way that you work. And so many people teach themselves.
Yes.
So there's no uniformity in how people do specific things because it's just how you happen to have learned that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just something like a slip knot. How many different ways have you seen people do their slip knot? We don't all do them the same way.
No. I've seen some slip knot methods. I was like, and I had to just like school my face because I was like, what you doing? And I was like, oh, snap, you did all that to make a slip knot? Okay. Okay. But even something that basic, there's a million ways. And like most things in knitting and crochet, there are a lot of ways to do things. So just look and see what way the designer did them. And maybe there's a reason that he or she did it the way they did it. Sometimes it's not, because that's the only way they knew how. So if you figure out a better way, do that. But, at least you know it's coming. Because I'm going to have to learn how to do chain stitch embroidery.
Is that could be like with a hook, or are you doing that when you just?
With a sewing needle.
That's really fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. But now I know when I start the sock, not when I think I'm finished.
That is useful, I would think.
Yes. Yes, I'm still untangling my yarn barf. But you know what? That's another thing I know about now. So I did want to talk about some tips for knitting and crocheting on a budget, because I, for one, do not have an unlimited yarn budget. And I think that especially in knit world, you get the impression that, I know when I first started knitting, watching knitting podcasts, nobody ever talked about what anything cost. So I would see this beautiful yarn somebody was working with, and I'd be like, oh, where can I get some of that? So I'd go and look for it online, and it would be, oh, I don't know, angel's tears and unicorn wings, and it would be $51 a ball, and I'd be like, oh, I'm not getting any of that. Because let's say I got that very, very expensive sock yarn and I made socks out of it. Oh, and it came in 50-gram balls, so I did 2 of them. That'd be a pair of $102 socks. And that left me feeling some type of way. And it wasn't until I realized, oh, a lot of these people on the podcast are not buying their own yarn. They're being gifted this yarn. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because I'd be like, where is all this yarn money coming from? But I always did like, Crystal and Mom always called me the yarn snob, but I always liked natural fibers. And I always was looking out for natural fibers on a budget. I'm not a yarn snob. I just happen to like, that's harsh.
I just felt like you not only like natural fibers, but that you looked down on acrylic.
I did not look down on acrylic. I used acrylic many a moon. I know you felt that way, but that wasn't the case.
I feel like that's what was happening now. You can ask Mom.
I was not looking down on acrylic. I just preferred natural fibers.
Mm-hmm.
Once I started using it, I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I liked it better than I liked it, acrylic. I'm going to just tell the truth. Now, I will still use a wool and acrylic blend because, sometimes that's just what's called for. But wherever, and that's why I started using sock yarn so much, because that was the first wool I really had access to, because I was still buying my yarn at the big box stores. And that was often the only wool they had was sock yarn.
And the hotel sales.
And the hotel sales. Sock yarn and fisherman's wool is what I could get. So I was doing everything in sock yarn because the fisherman's wool was a little rough.
I'm sorry, did you just say a yarn was rough?
It was a little rough.
I didn't think there was rough yarns in your world.
No, there are rough yarns in my world.
Wait, whoa.
There are rough yarns in my world, but I don't mind the texture of yarn as much as you do.
I don't mind texture. I mind when it's scratching me.
So let me see. What tips can I give if you're looking for, natural fibers on a budget?
Shop sales.
That's the first one. That's the easiest one.
And do not be afraid of a discontinued yarn. Just buy a lot of it.
Yes, buy all you want. Look around at various websites from the yarn companies. And if you buy your yarns at a yarn store, find the sale bin or the sale shelf.
I'm one of those people that shops at stores back to front.
Yeah.
I just go to the back of the store first, like, oh, don't mind me. I'm just following the clearance sign.
Exactly. There will be a shelf, a basket, a bin with yarn that are on sale. And because they're yarn store yarns, they will usually be either 100% or partially natural fibers, if that's what you're looking for. Now, I have never done that thing where people say they go to a thrift store and they find a natural fiber sweater and they reclaim the yarn. I've heard people have had success with that.
I want to try that.
I'm honestly intrigued.
Like,
but you'd have to be very specific in what you look for. Because let me tell you, most commercial sweaters, the yarn they use, it's like people have asked me, well, when I make an acrylic sweater, it's so heavy. Why is it when I buy an acrylic sweater from the store, it's not so heavy? Because hand knit yarn is much heavier than the yarn they make commercial sweaters out of. It is super duper fine because machines are knitting that and they can handle super fine yarn. That's why your acrylic sweater doesn't sweat you to death. And sweaters are often not made in one piece. So first you want to look for a sweater that was hand knit or cut and sewn together, because that's what you're normally going to find. Unless it was a hand knit sweater, it's going to have been knitted in pieces and sewn together. So you'll probably be able to reclaim the yarn from the body of the sweater, and you'll have some cut pieces from the sleeves. So that's what you need to look for. Look for a hand knit sweater or a sweater that when you look inside, you can see that only the sleeves have been sewn on, and that'll be your best bet. But that yarn will be fine. So you might want to double it or even triple it to make it something you can knit with by hand or crochet.
you're going to have to get more comfortable with shopping online.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the big box yarn companies that they do sell natural fibers, but for whatever reason, they don't turn up in the yarn in the craft stores.
Yeah.
There are yarns that I bought from like Premier I've never seen in Joann or Michaels. So you go to, if you want to like really save money but still get natural fibers, check out some of those big box companies, but like the natural fibers, like their dirty little secret, so they only sell them online.
Yeah. I don't know why that is.
Like I just got something from Premier called Chow Merino, and it's like merino and I think nylon. I don't know, but it's all natural fibers. It's not, there's no acrylic in it. So I've been looking specifically for yarns because that one time the acrylic just almost killed me.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been looking for yarns that don't have any acrylic in them, and I got Chow Merino for like $2 a ball last year, and I think it's a DK weight, and it's a chain net, and it's a nice yarn. I sauced it a little bit, but I haven't made anything with it yet. And Premier Yarn also gets some like discontinued yarns from Universal.
Mm-hmm.
So those, when I go to Premier Yarn's website, I'm going to tell you the truth, I only look at their sale and clearance section.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look at any of the full price yarns. But sometimes the yarns will come down to as little as $2 or $3 a ball. And that's like my number. So check the big box companies, but look online at their websites. Don't look for these yarns in the stores.
I think they don't have as much success selling wool in the stores, because I remember one time Michaels had this beautiful Australian wool and nobody was buying it but me.
It's just somebody somewhere bought some.
I don't know, Crystal, because they had it on the shelves at first and it wasn't moving. So they put it in a big box and they put it on an end cap. And that box stayed there for ages. And every time I would come in, I would get a coupon and get some of that yarn. So I think that might be the why. Also, look at your favorite yarn websites that sell online and buy the sales. Also, what I like to do, even when I shop for the store, I would look for the balls that had the most yarn on them. And that was something that I really saw as a way to pass on value to my customers. So I would often get 200-gram balls that had, 600 or 700 yards on it, so that you wouldn't have to buy more than a couple of them to really get a garment or something out of it. Or if I found a yarn that was a sock yarn, but it had, 480 yards on it rather than the 420 or 460 that they usually have. So that's the other thing you can look at too. Compare the yardage that you're getting for the price you're getting it at. And you can often save some money by not having to buy as much yarn. That's that's another thing too. When you are looking at patterns and they say, oh, well, we use this yarn, this yarn, this yarn, you can substitute in a yarn with a comparable weight, a comparable
Fiber content.
But like some of my yarns, when I would substitute in for a customer, they would have to buy half as much yarn because my balls are 100 grams and the balls that they used
That is
in the pattern.
Don't feel wedded to pattern yarn.
Yeah. Don't feel wedded.
Pattern yarn is propaganda. No, but yarn companies gives yarn to designers to help sell that particular yarn because so many people use pattern yarn. Don't feel like you have to use pattern yarn. Yes, you're going to have to, in some cases, figure out your own substitution.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be fine, but don't feel obligated to use pattern yarn.
Mm-hmm.
Because the designer got that yarn for free in all likelihood. Okay, so
yep.
You're not getting your yarn for free, so feel free to shop at a lower price point.
Exactly. Like I said, if you substitute a yarn that comes in 100-gram balls for that 50-gram ball, you're buying half as much yarn and still getting the thing made. I would look at the number of yards per gram. I would look up the fiber content. And if you felt a little insecure about doing it on your own, yarnsub.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really easy to use website. You put in the name of the yarn you want to find a substitute for, and they will give you a list of yarns that are comparable.
And they also will tell you what's different about the substitution yarn.
Mm-hmm.
So if one thing makes more difference to you than others, so they might tell you that the twist on the yarn is different.
Yeah.
So if you're a crocheter and you really want to use like a Z-twist yarn, they'll tell you, well, this yarn, the original yarn is Z-twist, but this one isn't. They tell you the things that are different, mm-hmm. so you can decide what your tolerance level is for swapping out these yarns.
Exactly.
You also want to subscribe to the newsletters from these brands, which I know is an annoyance, right? I just have like a separate email account that I send these kinds of things to, and then I only check that email when I feel like it. But you want to do that because sometimes they like to do the flash sale, mm-hmm. and the flash sale might last a day, it might last a few hours, but it'll be like a really big price drop, and you will want to know about that as soon as it happens before the flash sale runs out.
Exactly. Do the same thing for designers that you really like their patterns, because oftentimes when they have a new pattern coming out, they will give their subscribers a discount on that pattern for a couple of days before the pattern is released to the public.
Yarn dyers too will also do that.
Yeah.
So any dyer, any yarn brand that you like, go ahead and sign up for the newsletters, because that's the best way to find out about sales, and that's the best way to find out about them quickly. Mm-hmm. Quickly enough for you to act.
Yeah, I know for us, when we are going to have a sale, a day or two before it's released to the public, I will send it out to my subscribers so they will get first pick of the yarn. So that's another way you can like cut down on the expense of knitting or crochet.
And sometimes you also want to pay attention to like their sales cycle and how often they send out specific coupons, like Willow Yarns. I think their shipping is just ridiculous. So I only shop from Willow Yarns when they're offering a free shipping coupon. Mm-hmm. And Willow Yarns will limit you to one coupon code. So you can't use a coupon that gives you free shipping and then another one that gives you a discount on the yarn. Mm-hmm. So when I shop from Willow Yarns, I will only shop there when I have the free shipping coupon, and I will only buy yarns that are already discounted. So I've saved money in two different ways. Mm-hmm. It takes discipline. You're going to see a yarn that you really, really like. There was a yarn I was eyeballing for like a year, and I waited. It was like, I think $15 full price, and I waited until it came down to $10 a ball, and they went back up to $15 a ball. So I felt very clever having bought it at $10 a ball. But it was a lot of yardage, and I had free shipping. So it takes some effort. It really does. You have to really want to save the money.
It does. It really, really does. But between getting the insider pricing and just shopping when there's a good coupon like free shipping or something, you really can save money. And then what you want to do is buy enough, especially if you're getting it at a discount. Get all that you think you will need.
You'll never see that price again.
Yeah, because you may not, or if you're shopping on clearance, you won't be able to get that color.
That color, yes, because I wanted some chow merino and a blue, and I thought about it for one day, and the blue chow merino sold out.
Yeah, so when you're gonna get it,
she who hesitates is truly lost.
She who hesitates is lost. When you're gonna get it all that you think you're gonna need, because a discontinued yarn is just that. It is discontinued. And once it's sold out from the people who made it, now you're set searching people's de-stash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
Me neither. It's too much trouble.
Feel free to shop your own stash. That's another tip. Like, we all assume that, if we see a pattern, we don't have a yarn that we would like to make that thing. But looky here, we all know we all buy yarn all the doggone time.
Yes.
And we all have a ridiculous amount of yarn in our stash. Don't think, like, if a sweater in the pattern is all one color, you don't have to make it all one color. You can use different colors if that's the yarn you have in your stash, and still make that exact sweater. But be flexible when you're shopping your stash. But shop your stash, because I probably don't need to buy yarn again ever, but I will sometimes. But I have enough in my stash right now to make many, 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 many things. And I know we all get our heads turned by the new shiny pretty.
Yes,
we do. But if you're really trying to save money, just make sure you look first. Go through what you have first, and if you can use some yarn from your stash and then just buy a few less balls, you can also do that. So yeah, don't build up this massive stash and then give it side eye every time you see a cute pattern.
Absolutely.
Shop your stash.
I agree with that 100%. Now, do we have any money saving tips for hand dyes? No.
Like I said, I would say subscribe to the newsletter, because they do tell you when they're doing sales, and they often discount their one of a kinds.
Yes.
Those kind of like off colors that didn't come out the way they intended or whatever.
But it might be perfect for you.
Yeah.
The other thing is, just because the pattern used all hand dyed yarns doesn't mean you have to. Let's say you splashed out and you got that beautiful skein that turned your head, because we all have those skeins that just like, oh, hello. Let it be a star player in the garment that you make, and use a background of less expensive yarn as your background color. Use it up around the yoke, so it's like featured prominently. Do an intarsia design with it, and let the rest of your yarn be something that just didn't cost it. Let your $2 a ball yarn be the supporting player for your $30 a ball yarn or $40 a ball yarn, whatever it turned out to be. Because with hand-dyed yarns, you're buying that person's artistry. Someone is standing over a boiling pot, cooking color into the yarn. That costs money and time and effort. So just because I couldn't necessarily buy, 8 skeins of glorious hand-dyed yarn, I could buy 1 or 2 and use that as a starring player, or make something small that you just use. And that's the other thing. Use all the yarn. All of it. Let's say you can't use it all in one project. Make a mini skein of your own. I weigh my leftovers, and 20 grams is a mini skein. 10 grams is a unicorn tail. Unicorn tails are quite pricey. If you have 10 grams of yarn left, twist it into a little unicorn tail skein. Save it, because a project will come along for it. 25 grams plus, or 20 grams plus, that's a mini skein.
And that's something I want to get better. I have like a whole like list in my head of like terrible yarn habits I have that I'm trying to break. And I really want to get better about saving my leftover yarn just in case, you know, I find a use for it down the road. I mean, I'm not going to throw it out. So save your scraps, man.
Yeah. And that's the best money saving tip. Use every bit and you will have saved money right then and there.
But everyone has sales at some point for the most part. I mean, there's some people who just never will. But the thing is, when people are buying their inventory, they're making best guesses about what will sell. And sometimes those best guesses are wrong. So follow these people, their newsletters, follow their social media, and they will let you know when they just need to just get rid of some stuff to make space for new things. Mm-hmm. It means being patient. It means you will not always get your first choice. Be flexible. Let me tell you, you can't be broke and picky.
That's true.
It's one or the other.
One or the other. That's it.
So be flexible and don't resist that temptation to buy things just because you see other people with it.
Yeah.
That's going to save you the most money.
That's going to save you the most money. Absolutely. Okay, because we all know when a certain yarn is trending, you get the FOMO and you want some of that yarn too. No matter how many dozen skeins you have stacked up in your stash. But I think those are our best tips. I think if you apply even one or two, you'll save up some coin for, some event, Vogue Knitting Live or something. You got anything else?
No, that's it.
That's it for us today. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. If you have some tips on saving money on your yarn, and I didn't even think of tools. Maybe we'll do tools next time.
Probably same rules apply.
Really?
And make sure it's a tool you need.
Okay.
Because if you spent the money on it and you never used it, you don't get that money back. So
yeah. But if you have any tips, please leave them in the comments. If you have any questions, let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
And our mommy would be really happy if you would like and subscribe. And there's a bell thing too. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But if you want
ring the bell.
If you want to hit the bell, go ahead.
All right. Bye-bye, guys. See you next week.